do I build team so I can confidently take a job.
Yeah, so you're talking about the actual laborers, right? We're on the same page.
Right.
Okay. So a couple things. One, go to your local suppliers. You know, if you've got an ABC supply or an RSG, look at like the suppliers up there and say, you know, go talk to them and say, hey, I'm looking for a couple of really good roofing crews. Do you have anybody you can recommend? Because the roofing crews are going to the suppliers too and saying, hey, do you have jobs for us? Right? So that's a great place to start. You can always easily put out an ad on something like Indeed or Craigslist. Of course, you want to vet your guys when they come from Craigslist and stuff and see references and look at jobs they've done and stuff like that. And honestly, another old-fashioned way is if you know an area where there's a lot of roofing signs and there's roofs going on, stop by the job site and say, hey, I'd love to talk to your foreman. You know, I'm starting a roofing company. I'd love to be able to throw some jobs your guys' way. Can you show me some addresses where you've done some work, right? So those are kind of the most common ways are visit your supplier, ask around, visit live job sites, ask to talk to the foreman, and then putting out ads. I mean, those are kind of the main ways. And the thing is, a lot of these guys, especially like the Hispanic guys, they come up and they've got family members that want work, and they're like, you just tell me who you need. I can get 10 more guys up here next week. So, you know, network with those guys, just chat with them, tell them about what you're trying to do, and you can just kind of network, and they can send crews up and family members and stuff like that.
So, I have done that.
Okay.
For example, I was like I told you, I do flipping. So I stopped by at the site. I talked to a guy who worked for a framer. This time I was looking for a framer. So the actual company, the owner was not there. His worker was there. How do you bring them on board? Like, do you offer them full-time employment, and then what happens if there is no job for you? You don't have any job.
Right. So most of the time you're not going to be taking them on as full-time employees. Like, that's really uncommon that you do that. They're going to be hired as subcontractors. So you'd have a subcontractor agreement with them, what they're going to get paid, price per square for tear off, for put on, for steep, right, for two-story. So you're going to negotiate what the prices are going to be, what they'd get paid per linear foot of, you know, drip edge or of, you know, if flashings, things like that, fascia metal, things of that nature. And then remember, these guys are usually free agents. They're just going to go where there's work. So if you don't have work for them, they might have another company 10 miles away that they've got work, so they're going to go and do jobs for them. So that's usually what the subs do is if you can keep them busy, they'd love to just work for you. But if you can't keep them busy, they're going to go hop around and work for other people, but that's not necessarily a problem. But you do want to have a couple of crews on hand because if you've got a project with a deadline and you sprung it on them and they're like, well, sorry, but we've got this 40 square roof that we're doing for this guy across town, you want to be able to have somebody that you can call. So the best thing is to have like a roster of crews that you trust that you can call on. And if one's not available, you can call on another one. But they're going to be subcontractors. They're not going to be like full-time employees. Like, that's usually not how it goes.
So everybody is essentially relying on subcontractors.
Yes.
Because the reason I'm saying, so when you say crew, you are essentially saying find these subcontractors by going out. Indeed, suppliers, Craigslist, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. I have, because I do FNAP and I have given multiple jobs to these individuals, some guys are willing to give me a discount, but most of them are just so busy that they are just saying, oh, I'm going to charge you the same as any other job.
Right.
They're not giving the discount. I guess that's the biggest challenge, to find the subcontractor.
Yeah.
Who will give you a...
Well, that's just supply and demand. I mean, so in my industry, because I do storm restoration, like if Dallas, Texas, or Houston gets hit with a hurricane and a Cat 5 hailstorm, there's so much work that needs to be done, and there's only so many crews, right? So they really have the upper hand because they go, listen, if you want my work, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you this much right now because everybody's calling me. So that's just kind of classic supply and demand. I mean, in terms of dealing with that, like you're just going to have to play the game a little bit, because when you're in an area that has a ton of new construction like where you're at, that might just be the reality. So some crews you might be paying X amount per square, and the next crew you might be paying Y per square, right?
Uh-huh.
That's just part of it. But again, if you have a lot of work and you can keep them busy, that gives you some leverage to negotiate the price per square. Maybe you're not paying them top dollar, but you've got a job for them every single day. So they're going to stick with you, right? But on the other hand, if it's like, well, I only have, a job or two a week for you guys, and they're like, well, these companies have me busy 5 days a week. We're happy to do these jobs for you, but it's going to cost you. Like, it's going to be an adaptive process, basically. Like, you're going to need to be okay sometimes with paying more competitive rates for these guys. And I also wouldn't recommend paying bottom dollar to crews, because they'll leave your ass. And we don't want you to be stuck with, you've got this big job, that you sold to this customer, this client, and then the crew disappeared because you're paying them, bottom dollar to just try to make more per square. Like, we want to have a good relationship with the crews too. They're doing really hard work. That's the hardest part of the job, So be wary of being too stingy about price per square, because we want to keep these guys busy, pay them fairly, and make sure that they're reliable and they're loyal to you.